Welcome to the 16th episode of the Create Stuff Podcast. I'm your host, Shaun Saxum. A few quick things before we begin. I have a Patreon. Please consider supporting it if you're a fan of the podcast. Seriously, just $1 a month helps me so much more than you can imagine. I really want to hire a editor for this podcast if I can, especially now that I'm releasing episodes every Wednesday of Create Stuff and SCP Authors Anomalous, my other podcast. So if you're willing to donate any amount, that seriously helps me so much. But no pressure, just you being here, just you listening along helps so much. Consider leaving a like, comment, subscribing, doing all the little things you do. Leave a rating, follow me if you're on Spotify. Whatever it is you do on your platform, consider doing it. It seriously helps so much. And tell your friends about the podcast. If you think you know someone who might be interested, let them know. That is how these things spread. That is the best thing you could possibly do for me. Thank you so much. Really hope you enjoy the episode. Real quick, there is also some music in the background at some points. These are Oliver Buckland's tracks that he gave me permission to use. If you hear music come in the background, like fade in, it's there. It's like you're not going crazy. It's actually there. Enjoy. Welcome back to the 17th episode of the Create Stuff Podcast. Today I am joined by Oliver Buckland.
Hello.
You cut out there for a second on my end.
God damn it. We've got to do it all over again. Cut the lights. Burn everything down.
All right. No, this is perfect. This is exactly what we expect out of this podcast. What a perfect intro.
Oh my god. I'm gonna move my mic slightly closer. There we are. Yeah. Is that any better?
Perfect.
I shouldn't cut out so much.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there. That was a little bit weird. If you have noise suppression turned on Discord, you probably came through on your end all right, so that's okay.
Well, we shall see.
I guess so. I'll message you if I need you to say hello to me again and send me the audio file. Okay, well, we're a minute and 20 seconds in, and I still don't know what you do, so, Oliver Buckland, who are you? I know what you do.
Well, I barely know what I do. I'm a composer based in London. I do a lot of random freelance work. People may know me as the composer who works on the ENA series for Joel G.
Yeah. All right, I think that's how I found you initially, was from the Temptation Stairway OST. Love that soundtrack.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah. So, start from the beginning. How did you get started with music?
I started piano lessons when I was like 3, and then was a choir boy for 8 years. And then I went to like a music school, and then I went to a music college, like a conservatoire. So it's kind of been like super intense music all the way, boom, 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 all the way up. I was originally like a pianist, and then kind of just before I went to university, switched to composition.
I see. Okay. What made you switch to Wow. What made you switch to? Good God.
Let's try again.
You'd think I would know how to say words after doing a podcast for this long.
Third time's the charm, baby.
Okay. What caused you to switch to composition? Sounded so awkward.
It's fine. It's fine.
Well, I'm leaving it in.
I suppose it comes from a desire to kind of like make my own rules rather than follow them. I enjoy being creative. I like making things.
Yeah, creating stuff.
Well, yeah, and whether that's music or, crappy digital art, I just prefer making things than following instructions.
Okay, cool. Well, tell me a little bit about your music specifically. What sets your music apart from a lot of other people's? You got kind of a distinctive style going on.
Oh my god, it's the dreaded question. I'm still trying to figure that out myself. It's so hard to answer that question, because it's difficult to self-analyze. I find that really difficult to answer. What makes my music different?
That's fair. I mean, a lot of people I've seen a lot of people label it as Internetcore or Webcore.
Yeah, which is really funny to me, like Weirdcore and Webcore and ENA Core. I mean, it's just whatever the hell it is. We're all the product of our experiences and our values, and everything that we've experienced in our lives sets us up to who we are right now. And that particular mix of experiences makes me who I am. But I couldn't tell you exactly what that is. I'm, deeply inspired and influenced by classical music, but my music is far from classical. I want my music to be interesting above anything. I feel like the ultimate failure is for music to be boring. If people hate my music, that's much better than them finding it boring. So I think maybe that drives me as to like how I might write something, but defining what that is I feel like everyone other than me would do a better job at defining what my music is.
That's fair. That's often how it is with creating things, you know?
Yeah, but I do want to try not... Because people are like, oh, your music's a bit like this, or it's a bit like that, or it's this particular thing. And whilst that's kind of interesting on a surface level, I try not to think about it too much because I don't want it to change the way I write. I'd rather just like continue as I am right now and see how maybe that develops.
Cool. I think that's a great way to go about it.
But it wasn't a very concise answer there.
That's okay. I totally get it. I mean, like, you really don't need to be like, it's this type of music, you know? I feel like if people are gonna listen to your music and think that's what, honestly, like, your style is so distinct, giving it a label just is like difficult and unnecessary. Like, I can listen to one of your songs and be like, that sounds like an Oliver Buckland song, you know? That's good enough. If anything, I think that's way cooler than just being able to say like, oh, that's rock, or that's like electric.
Well, thank you. I don't know what it is. I don't know what... it's just really difficult for me to kind of know what it is that makes my music sound like my music, because I am me, and so I'm too close to the case. I have no idea what I'm talking about.
Fair enough. That's okay. Well, let me ask you then. If you can answer this question, what do you do differently from other people when you're making your music?
I don't know. I just do what I do. I suppose an element of writing. I try not to sound like other people, but I don't try too hard at that. I don't know. I just try and do my own thing and keep working on something until it sounds right to me. Mm-hmm. What sets me apart, man? That's going to bug me all night. I'm going to be like lying in bed like, what does set me apart? And I feel like it's just everyone will have their own ideas on what music should be or can be, what sounds interest them. Mm-hmm. Maybe if they want to say something specific with their music, and everyone's going to differ from that. And I think I want my music to have like a certain level of complexity and like layers to it that you can enjoy. So you can enjoy it on a very surface level. I want it to be like accessible to almost anyone, and that's quite important to me. But whilst it remains accessible, I don't want that to kind of like, what's the word, get in the way of like artistic integrity. So to me, a successful piece is one that can be enjoyed by multiple people on different levels. So maybe like first level, oh, that sounds cool, I enjoy it. And then maybe a second level is, oh, he's maybe referencing this sort of sound or this sort of type of music. And maybe the third level is, oh, there's, I don't know, this interesting timbre, and this is a weird way to use a piano. That's interesting. And maybe even another level to that, which is, oh, he's hiding this message here, and this might mean this, if I'm making any sort of sense.
No, that makes complete sense. That's actually a really interesting way to describe it.
One of my composition teachers referred to it as kind of a Simpsons approach. Like, you can enjoy The Simpsons on so many levels. Colours and shapes that can be enjoyed by, like, young children. Maybe there's some slapstick, maybe that's fun. But then, as you get a bit older, you start to kind of understand the jokes, and it's well written, and it's well voice acted, and that's enjoyable on that level. Then you might enjoy it on kind of like biting satire and criticism of like current events. And then finally there's like meta levels where they'll make like super complicated math jokes which like almost no one will notice, but a very small subsection of people will find hysterically funny. I like that kind of approach to art because there's no correct way of enjoying say, an episode of The Simpsons, but that you can enjoy it on those levels, and the more you put into it, the more you'll get out of it.
Uh-huh. Wow, that is incredibly interesting, actually. Never heard about that.
Other people probably use much better terms to describe this, but that's just the way I think about it.
I think it makes complete sense. I understand 100%.
So yeah, I guess that's sort of my approach to music. The things that I'm pleased with tend to follow that, what would you call it, philosophy.
Okay. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay. Well, let me ask, what other artists, inspire you?
Like, a really random mix. And what tends to happen is I'll like specific pieces by a specific composer and then kind of not respond maybe quite as much to their other stuff. So I really like the minimalist composers Steve Reich and Philip Glass. There's this really interesting electronic artist called Ryoji Ikeda, who I've probably mispronounced his name terribly, so I apologize in advance. Who does really interesting work with like just sine waves and noise and kind of sonification of data. And that, it's nothing like my music, but it's interesting in that it kind of made me think about what music can be, or could, like what you can make into music. I mean, I grew up listening to a lot of game soundtracks, so really like Jeremy Soul's music for Skyrim and Oblivion. Mm-hmm. God, I should have prepared this.
That's okay.
I should have this list ready, and I'm just like, oh God, gotta remember all these people. But
I'll cut out all the silence and stuff, so don't worry about that.
Yeah, just gonna wait 20 minutes whilst I just Google everything I've ever listened to. Early on, and still a bit to this day, I like listening to really random stuff on SoundCloud, because I think it's quite a good place to find really hidden away gems. There's this guy called Rory Smith, and he's super not well known. And he made this album, and I don't think you can even find it online anymore, called 30 Pieces in 30 Days. And it was made mostly out of distorting a piano in really, really creative ways. And that was enormously inspiring to me as a kid, because it made me think, oh, it was just about thinking about what you could do, what am I trying to say? How many sounds you could get out of a piano, for instance, like seemingly infinite amounts. And that kind of made me do basically exactly the same thing with my albums 10, 20, and 30, which were, each piece was individually made in under 12 hours, completely and utterly ripping him off. I mean, I told him about it, but he's kind of, I haven't been able to contact him. So, but yeah, I really want him to release his album publicly. It was really, really cool and really, really inspiring.
If you're listening, Rory Smith, hey man, release your stuff. I want to hear it. Message me about it, and I will put a link to it in the description if you ever do release it. I love searching for really small, interesting stuff like that. Never got on SoundCloud to do it, but honestly, that sounds like a great place for it.
I mean,
it's just so special.
There'll be a few of his tracks were hosted on other YouTube channels, so I might be able to find a few of them. But I'll talk about that some other time. I mean, I managed to save all of his tracks before they went down, so I've still got them, but they're not like hosted publicly online.
I see what you're saying. Okay, so you said game soundtracks influence you specifically, right?
Not specifically, but they do.
That makes a lot of sense to me. I'll tell you what I've listened to from you. I tried to listen to as much as I could. I listened to, of course, everything in ENA. And I've listened to, I think, most of 30. But it reminds me of old school, like, game sound, sort of. Like, it has that kind of sound font, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not sure if you, like, played that up for ENA specifically.
I kind of just did my own thing, really. I was really, really lucky. Joel was just, well, he gave me so much freedom. He was like, yep, I trust you with this, just make something and we'll go over it and then change things if we need to. And I made only one change.
Okay, well, actually, tell me a little bit more about what it was like to work on ENA then.
Well, it's ongoing actually, because at the moment the team's working on a game called Dream Barbecue.
Oh yes, I just watched the teaser this morning. So excited for that.
Again, I feel like incredibly lucky because Joel's just giving me excellent freedom.
Sounds great.
I mean, he'll say he might say I want something a bit like this or a bit like that, but he kind of trusts me enough to just sort of make something, and it will probably be near to what's needed, and then maybe some changes will be made. But yeah, it was the whole ENA thing just came out of nowhere. What was it? 2 years ago? Was it a year and a half? I don't even remember the timeline, but I just got an email from him completely out of nowhere, just saying, "Oh yeah, can I maybe use your music in an animation?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay, fine." And then it just exploded in popularity, and the number of plays I had was in the low thousands, and it's now, quite a lot higher than that now. Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, which is really strange, and I'm still trying to work out how I feel about it.
Really? What was your initial reaction?
I mean, of course it's delight, and I'm like, wow, yeah, that's really cool that loads of people are listening to my music. And then I'm like, oh my god, loads of people are listening to my music. I'm a fraud. Why are they listening to this? There's so much better stuff out there. So there's all the thoughts of, what's the word, imposter syndrome and confidence stuff. But I think that happens to most people.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, I'm super grateful that it's happened, but also I feel this pressure to make stuff that's at least as good or better than what I've done before. And that's tricky. Of course, I'm probably putting too much pressure on myself, even thinking that, but I don't know, when my audience jumps from a few thousand to, hundreds of thousands, I want to, still create good stuff.
Right. 100% understandable. Okay, here's something I kind of want to ask. So this is where my lack of understanding of the music creation process comes in. I was into high school marching band. I was pretty dang good at the marimba, but that's where my music knowledge ends. I know nothing about.
I played the marimba. Woo!
Oh, let's go,
yeah.
fellow marimba man. Oh man, I love that instrument so much. I would so keep doing it in college if I could afford thousands of dollars it would require for me to buy one. Oh, that's the dream.
Yeah, I want to retire and just play marimba all day long. That's my goal.
It's on there. I mean, once I have a house of my own, one of the first things I'm doing is saving up for a marimba, putting it in the basement. I want one of those. I love those things. That's so much. So fun. But yeah, I don't know much about mixing or making composing. So I think specifically in Hourglass Meadow, a good example of this is okay, a lot of your music has this kind of I don't know how to describe it. It's not distorted, but a little bit crunchy, I guess, feel to it. It feels purposely the backing drum. Wow, everything escaped me. The percussion, the audio feels a little the quality is a little bit less low, but on purpose, if that makes sense.
I'm just jumping over to listen to it myself, just to bloody remind myself.
I don't know if I'm making sense at all here.
So no, I mean the drums in Hourglass Meadow are a bit distorted and chopped up. That was
I wanted to ask about that.
I mean that was done. One, because I quite like the sound, but also to kind of evoke this, old game feel.
That's what I thought. I wanted to lead into that.
Yeah, I mean it's just at least slightly referencing that sound world of old games, whilst also doing something a little bit of my own style, I suppose.
Like the PS2's Dreamcast style soundtracks.
Lots of nostalgia there.
Oh yeah, okay. Is that is that something that inspires your music in general, or is that something you did just for Temptation Stairway?
I wouldn't be surprised if it sort of subconsciously inspires me. I don't know how... It's really... I don't even remember what I was thinking when I wrote this.
It has been a bit.
I just can't remember exactly how I was approaching it, but I do remember wanting to slightly reference, old game music, but not too much.
I think Temptation Stairway has that whole, just ENA in general has the feeling of an old game. It's obviously made to feel that way, which is what makes it so cool and unique. I think your soundtrack plays into that perfectly.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. So that's what you were going for?
Yeah, I wanted to go for something that, one would fit, two would sort of reference this sort of old game feel that the animation has, but then three, just to have fun with it.
Yeah.
I'm largely led by fun in music. It's usually a good sign when I usually laugh. I try to make myself laugh when I'm writing, because I find that a good metric to be like, okay, yeah, this is if I find this slightly amusing, it's probably going to be received a bit better by a first time listener. I don't know if that makes any sense, but
no, it definitely does. It definitely does. It's nice to hear that you're having fun while you're making music. Honestly, I think that's great. It comes through a lot.
Sometimes
I can definitely hear the experimentation.
Sometimes it's like, oh yes, I'm having loads of fun with it, but a lot of the time it's like when I'm starting, I'm like, oh, what am I doing? How am I going to do this? This isn't the right sound. And then kind of after bashing my head against a wall for a few hours, it's just like, yes, okay, this. And then I kind of run with it.
Okay. Actually, that kind of leads into another question I have.
Yeah?
This is a good one. Can you tell me about the process of making a song? Both your creative process and the physical process.
Oh, man. I think it depends every time. There's no, exact formula I use. But a lot of my music is made by starting with what sound world I like, what sort of synths, what sort of harmony I want, and I'll generally just mess around in. I tend to use FL Studio as my main DAW of choice, and I usually just play around until I'm like, okay, yes, I like that sound, and so I'll save maybe that sound and play a small melody on it or something, keep it to one side, move on to another sound. And when I find something I like, I'll keep that to one side, and slowly things will build up and start to make some sense. And I'll start with a little fragment of music and listen to it over and over and over and think, okay, where should it go from here? What feels natural? Where do I feel this going, and how is it going to develop? I think I'm getting a bit better at structuring my music better, because the trap that's really easy to fall into is just to write more and more new material as you go, rather than kind of reining yourself in and maybe having a little theme that comes in at the beginning and then in the middle, that sort of thing. But again, it depends. Sometimes I will sit down and start and quite quickly put some material together, and other days it will take me weeks. There's no pattern to it. And these people talk about, some people who just sit down and just write a whole piece, and they dreamt a piece and they sat down and whoosh, there it was. I'm inclined to believe they're liars. There's no shortcut really. It's just bloody hard work to get anything done. Artistically, whether that's music or fine art or any other form of artistic endeavour. You can only start doing things quickly when you've spent ages learning how to do it at all.
Right. Okay, so how do you come up with ideas for songs?
Usually it will just sort of arrive after messing around with a synth that I like. Sometimes I dip into this notebook I have, which has a bunch of melodies in, where I force myself to write in pen, so it's much worse if I make a mistake. I dip into that when I'm really stuck. But you'd think I could answer this more easily. I'm still not sure. I mean, I think it's easier if I'm writing for something. So with Temptation Stairway, for instance, I had Hourglass Meadow, a bunch of sort of block colours which were bright and vibrant, and so I wanted the piano to reflect that, but also to have like an aspect of something being mildly unsettling. So I wanted to maybe put that in the harmony. So I suppose
that 100% shows.
That helps, is in like having something to write for helps me make decisions on what the music should be doing or how it should do what it does. And for like Dead God Graveyard, which was like the final sequence before the credits, I wanted something dark and ominous and sad and mysterious, and I wanted, even just those emotions helps me decide kind of what sounds I should be using, what, if anything, what melodies I should be using. But when
expand on that a little bit. What would you say? Oh, I'm sorry. What were you about to say?
Oh, I was just going to quickly mention that when I'm making like a piece that's standalone and entirely driven, by me thinking I want to write a piece of music, but not having a really defined mental image, that's sometimes a lot harder. Because it's like having a blank page and just being like, where do I start?
100% understandable.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, you're all good. I actually interrupted you, but I was gonna say, could you tell me a bit more about like composing based off of emotions? Like, what about Dead God Graveyard did you put into it to make it have that more ominous, sad atmosphere, grim?
Well, I put a cathedral bell in sort of halfway
Always
through
helps.
to try and. Well, I mean, it's a graveyard of gods, so it's already pretty dark thematically. Interestingly, Joel told me some more background information about the location, which I will not be sharing here. He's quite secretive about it. Yeah.
And you got me so excited there for a second.
But that helps me kind of decide, okay, maybe I should do this, maybe I should do that. So we've got this low... It's not very easy to tell, but it's actually me throat singing, slightly pitched down.
Oh.
Just kind of, and having gentle piano above. I thought would be like a good way to, ease people in. And then I reference like a previous track called Backroom Labyrinth.
Backroom Labyrinth. I think that's one of your most popular tracks, isn't it?
It is, and that really bugs me. I was
Really?
Yeah, I was never going to release it. The only reason it ever saw the light of day is because Joel asked me if there was any like stuff I hadn't released that he could listen to, and Backroom Labyrinth was amongst it. It didn't have a title at the time, and he was like, "Yes, I want to use that." And it wasn't finished. Like the last maybe 30 to 40 seconds didn't exist. And it's not that I hate the track or anything, but it was something I made genuinely in like 2 hours maximum. And I was like, okay, this is just a fun little test. I've got like loads and loads of these random tests that I've never published because I don't like them, or they're not finished, or I just don't know how to sort of develop them into something bigger, and Background Labyrinth was one of these. And the last 30 to 40 seconds are generated by AI.
Really?
Yeah.
How does that work?
So I used a neural network called Jukebox. It's made by OpenAI. I find it really fascinating how the way that it can generate something that sort of makes musical sense. It's trained on like millions of songs, and it uses the patterns it finds from these songs to inform how it generates, the end of Backroom Labyrinth. And in a way, it felt like I'm kind of... it feels like I'm stealing from millions and millions of people the patterns from their songs. And I was quite interested in kind of like music ownership and like all of that at the time. So I thought I'd just, quietly generate it with AI and see if anyone noticed. For a really long time, nobody seemed to, but recently a few people have been like, this sounds like Jukebox. And the jig is up. They found me out.
You got caught.
Yeah.
That's cool, though. That's, like, incredibly interesting. OpenAI, like, just all the stuff they make interests me so much.
Yeah, I can't decide whether it's very exciting, but I'm also quite spooked by it. Like...
That's understandable.
Because when, if ever, will there come a time when the music becomes so convincing that, it threatens the livelihoods of artists and composers alike? I mean, I have no idea what the answer to that question is, but I suppose...
That is a scary thought.
Well, it is scary, yeah, but I wanted to sort of check it out to see how good it was, just to kind of understand it better.
Do you think if it were to get to that point, it would, like, devalue music made by humans?
I mean, you say that now, but, we've got the whole issue with Spotify sort of commodifying music as if it's, something on tap. The amount that I get paid per stream on Spotify is, shockingly little. So, I mean, it would be... yes, it could devalue music even more. Maybe it wouldn't. I just don't know. I also don't know what the solution to that problem is, because Spotify is undeniably very, very useful and helpful for people who are looking to play music immediately. But, it pays artists really poorly.
Right.
And so, other revenue streams need to be found. I'm not sure where I'm going with this. I'm kind of like going off on a bit of a tangent.
No. This is interesting. This is where the best stuff on this podcast comes out. Like, these really interesting questions. Yeah, me thinking too. That's good. I love that.
It just bugs me that Backroom Labyrinth, of all things, has become my most popular track, because it's like the thing I happen to spend the least amount of time on ends up getting like millions of plays.
Seems like that's always how it goes with creators.
Oh, it always goes that way. And then like things that I spend ages on, they're just like, yeah, a bit of interest and more like minor ambivalence. Whatever.
Okay. I will say, when you talked about Dead God Graveyard and how you got that feeling, that was interesting as hell. So if we could do that a little bit more, that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe some other tracks.
There's a secret no one's actually discovered yet in Dead God Graveyard, which I've been patiently waiting to see if anyone notices, and they haven't yet. They've come close, but they haven't noticed it yet.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, if you're listening, then go hunt for that.
Yeah, go hunt for stuff.
Dang. Okay, that's exciting. I might have to look into that myself. I love stuff like that.
But people have found almost everything, but like there are a few little things that are still quietly just hidden away, because I find that super fun. Do you hide stuff in your music a lot? All the time. I've been doing it for years.
Awesome.
It's sort of I just find it a fun little way to amuse myself, whilst also, when finishing a track, I tend to like see if I can sneak something into it.
Yeah, that's fun. Do you think you could take me through Hourglass Meadows like how you did with Dead God Graveyard?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a little bit harder to do it with Hourglass Meadow, but harmony-wise, I kind of wanted to go for something that was bouncy and happy with a twinge of like something that's unsettling. The middle section of the piece, the bum 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 bum, that actually came from a completely unrelated track that I had lying on my hard drive. Because sometimes I try and like get something done in an hour, just to like force myself to actually write something, because I struggle with like motivation. So sometimes I'm like, right, I've got to do something in an hour, and most of them pretty terrible, but that one of them was all right, and I kind of just popped it in the middle of Hourglass Meadow, and it was thematically appropriate. Changed it a little bit, but it kind of fit.
One thing I found very interesting about Hourglass Meadow is it kind of has like this, it definitely has like a progression. Like you can feel it get more, you can feel how it like changes as it goes about, you know? Like it's not just a simple loop.
I'm just listening back to it again because I always forget.
I'm listening to it right now too. And hopefully our audiences as well.
I mean, I had a rough cut of the animation already when doing this, so I kind of wanted to time certain things, such as walking through the archway. I wanted that to move into a new section. And then kind of like when you're sort of near the end, I add kind of it sounds like the beginning, but I add this kind of jumping from ear to ear just to kind of like, I try not to ever exactly repeat something in my music, just because I feel like that's, I just hear too much stuff that's like an exact repeat or an exact loop. I think just very slightly changing something so that it adds maybe a new layer or maybe changes what you've heard originally is just it's a cheap and easy way of making something continue to feel fresh when listening through a track.
It makes it a lot more exciting, a lot more fun to listen to, right? Like you said earlier.
But again, I mean, all of my opinions and philosophies on what music should be are my own. They are arbitrary, they are wishy-washy, and, you know, I'm not like, no one's ever objectively correct about anything when it comes to artistic opinion. It's also like up in the air.
Right. Still very interesting to hear what you think, though. I can definitely see your philosophy in a lot of your tracks. Or hear it, I guess I should say.
Phew.
Do you have another track that you think you could go through kind of like you did with Dead God Graveyard and Hourglass Meadow? Another one that would be particularly good for that?
Just pick one. Pick a random one that you've listened to. I can...
Oh, okay. Because
usually I'll try and write with intent, so I should be able to talk about it a bit.
Okay. What about your second most popular track, Ikosa? Or Ikosa?
I don't even know how to pronounce that one. I've been saying Ikosa, but, you know, you can pronounce it how you like. So that started out with me just doodling on the piano, and then speeding it up into this like overly kind of saccharine track. I think on the surface level it's supposed to be like, look how bouncy and sort of in your face I am, but sort of behind the scenes it's a bit like, oh, something's wrong, something's slightly off.
Ooh.
Yeah, I was trying to make myself laugh when writing it, because I was just trying to think of like a melody that was fun and bouncy but slightly weird.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, the beginning and the end of the piece are, you know, kind of whatever, but that middle section is absolutely bananas. It just goes, it's a super fast melody that you wouldn't normally hear in a track like that, which was quite deliberate, because I thought let's break up these two sections with a really weird and intense middle section going through a bunch of different chords with a melody that is actually, it is technically playable, it's just very difficult to play.
I can imagine, yeah.
I originally
I'd love to play that on marimba.
That would be really hard, especially because I've tuned it so it's in F quarter flat sharp major.
Oh God. Calm down, jeez. F quarter flat major.
F quarter flat sharp major, so it's like slightly less than F sharp major.
Flat sharp.
It's probably. Well, what would you call that?
Oh my God.
You'd call that F. Oh, I don't really know.
I hit the funny wooden bar and it makes sound and I like it. Okay.
So originally it was in E major, but something I do quite often is I will listen back to the track and be like, do I like it in this key? Should it be in a different key? And occasionally I'll change that. And my favorite key for this one to be in was F sharp major, but in order to kind of like reinforce this slight weirdness, I detuned it slightly, so you can't play along with it on a piano unless you detune the piano. And that's something I do quite often. is I detuned. So Hourglass Meadow, that's detuned, and I just find that quite fun, and I think that will help set it apart from something else in the playlist, because if you're listening to something that's in standard tuning A equals 440, and then you switch to one of these weird tracks of mine that's not in 440, you'll be like, whoa, what's going on? Your ear will automatically be like, whoa, what is this?
Super interesting. Cool. All right. Well, I honestly, like, it's very interesting to hear you talk about like the what you're going, like what kind of mood, what kind of feeling you're trying to give with these tracks, and then like listening back to them, because you could totally hear that in it. It's super cool to me. I love that stuff.
Thanks. I mean, although I might be going for a certain type of emotion, like I'm not always going to succeed at that. And if, Ikoza makes you happy, like overall, and you didn't get that kind of like slightly off vibe, that's fine too. And there's no like correct way to listen to it. It's just kind of like a starting point for like how I might write something, but that doesn't mean like it objectively is that thing.
Right.
I hope that makes some sort of weird sense.
I think it does.
It's really strange that the 30 album of all things got really popular, because they're really fast sketches, most of them. So they're not stuff I could really like spend time with and work over and make into something I was really pleased with. So sure, I'm really grateful and like happy that people are even listening to my music at all. But I find it like irritating that it's always the stuff I didn't spend much time on. I'm like, it's gotta be better.
Well, let me ask, what else have you published? Because I'm looking at your albums on SoundCloud right now. I only see the 30, the 10, 20, and 30, and this new C EP.
Oh, this new C, that was something I did back at school. That's quite a strange one. I like it, but it's that will be a bit less accessible, I think. And that's kind of the technical term apparently is sort of classical post-minimalism, which is one of these terms that sort of means nothing, but it's
yeah, that's a lot of words.
Yeah, it's a piece. This new C is an old piece I did, which uses the pitch of people's voices to define what the melody is. So it's in 3 movements, and it's about the space race. So the first, what is it? I'm gonna have to look it up. The first track is
We Choose to Go to the Moon.
Yeah, so it's JFK giving us a really famous speech at in Rice University in Texas, I think, and he talks about why do we climb the highest mountain, because it's there and the moon and the stars are there. We choose to go to the moon not because it's easy, but because it's hard. But the way he says it with a really particular pitch. He goes, we choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. And so I chose the da dee 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 as a melody to use in the piece. And then and I do the same thing for movements 2 and 3. Second one's the direct audio of the moon landing, and then the third movement is Ronald Reagan's address at the end of the day regarding the Challenger 7 disaster, the explosion, and he says, yeah, it was a really good speech. Well, you wouldn't really call it a speech, but he said the final few words he said is we wish them well on their way as they something, and then he says, and slipped the surly bonds of earth to touch the face of God. And I thought that was a really interesting phrase, and I set that to music as well. But that's really old. I wasn't expecting you to talk about those.
I actually brought it up just because it's one of the I think it's the only other thing you have on your albums on SoundCloud besides the 10, 20, 30.
I tend to release things as individually. I haven't done album stuff for a long time now. Maybe I should.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, my last kind of... Let's have a look. I haven't even looked at my SoundCloud. There we are. Let's zoom over. Yeah, so my last kind of release, which was for myself, was released, oh my god, 2 years ago already. It's called SVL. And I did that just before the pandemic. Which, I was so not creative over the pandemic. I did almost nothing. It completely, sucks away my creativity. And the fact that Joel emailed me when he did was actually really, really good in kind of making me restart composition.
I see.
So it came at an excellent time, and, he's a really big part of why I'm still, writing. Because at the time I was going through this whole, is this what I want to do? Why am I so unmotivated? But then suddenly I had something to write for, and it kind of, put some more coal on the fire.
Aha. Okay, interesting. Well, that's nice. Definitely got you to make some interesting stuff. Actually, this is something I kind of want to talk to you about. You mentioned this, we briefly mentioned this way earlier, but I wanted to ask, how do you feel about these really specific subgenres of music, like Weirdcore, Internetcore, the classical post-minimalism? How do you feel about that sort of stuff?
Well, what even is Weirdcore? What is Internetcore? If you've got a bunch of people to sit down and ask them to define exactly what it was, I'd be very surprised if they all gave the same answer. I think people just want to put labels on things. They want to find music that's maybe similar to mine, or because there are three other composers on the ENA project. There's Metarum, and there's Graham Cartner, and then there's Tessie. And our music is similar enough to sort of, I mean, it's not the same at all, but it could potentially fit under a sort of similar-ish umbrella, and people might want to find music that's similar to all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And so, they come up with this term, Weirdcore. And so on one hand, I'm like, well, what do you mean? What is it? What is Internetcore? What is that? But on the other, people are just looking for a way to sort of define something. And it doesn't harm me in any way, so I say go for it. I don't really know how to feel. It's interesting to me, though, to see my stuff labelled as Weirdcore. I at first I was like, Weirdcore? What do you mean? But now I'm just like, yeah, sure, whatever, fine. Okay,
fair enough. This is honestly a topic I find really interesting personally, because, it seems like, I don't know, I spend a lot of time on YouTube listening to those, especially when I'm writing something. Writing is my main form of creativity. When I'm writing something, I want to give it a specific mood. I'll usually look up playlists on YouTube or wherever to get that kind of match that mood or make my own.
Yeah.
And those Weirdcore playlists that you find, they I feel like I listen to it and it feels like less of a style of music and more of a vibe, like a mood.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting.
If that makes sense.
Defining genre by how it makes you feel rather than what the music is.
Yeah. I mean, if you were to say what genre it is, I'd say most of it probably just falls under electronic.
Yeah.
Which is just a terrible label at this point, honestly. Just such a non-specific thing. But I don't know. I mean, I don't think it makes sense. I feel like it's... I'm kind of talking out my ass here, but I think this is just a really interesting topic, and I do think about it a lot. I feel like it's less the kind of label you'd go on Spotify and look up Weirdcore, and it would label music as Weirdcore, even though it apparently does do that. It also labels it as Dream SMP genre, so Spotify doesn't mean anything to me anymore.
Wait,
the genres at least.
It lists what? What?
Oh, do you not know about this? Oh my god. Do you know what the Dream SMP is?
The Minecraft YouTuber.
Yeah. The it's a big Minecraft server that has a whole story and stuff to it. A lot of my guests have been from that.
I am out of the loop.
Completely fair. It's like a Minecraft roleplay server. I've had multiple guests on who are involved in it, not directly, but who make stuff based off of it, and I am personally a fan of it. But it's a big Minecraft server that Dream made just to play with his friends, and then Wilbur Sugana, he started role-playing, and then they started writing a script, and it just evolved into this huge, really interesting story. And so it inspired so much fan content. Like for example, from music from people like Moderately Mediocre, which you guys should go check out their interview and also his music because it's pretty good. And there's honestly so much of it now that Spotify labels Dream SMP as a different genre. In like the recaps, it'll be like your most listened to genres. Dream SMP can be one of them.
And genres can just be born from such, unexpected places. So
yeah, I don't know if I'd say that really makes any sense, honestly. At least not as much sense as Weirdcore, maybe, but it's not that far off.
Well, the fact that it exists at all, and the fact that it can, be created from a fandom like that.
Right.
I mean,
it's more of a category than a genre, right? Or is that just what a genre is in general?
God, you're asking the hard questions. I don't feel prepared to even answer that. Man.
God, yeah, this is something I've just think about. I've never talked about before.
Yeah, is it a style or a category? Man.
This might be a conversation to come to at another time. This could be its own hour-long topic.
Word thesis. I shall explore these themes. Yeah, that's like PhD level. I mean, you could dedicate your whole life to that question.
Oh yeah. All right. Well, maybe I'll come back to that in a special episode someday because I do want to talk about this. But
sure.
We're getting a little bit too far from the topic of this episode.
That's all right. That's fine.
It's interesting, at least. Think about that, people. Tell me what you think in the comments, honestly, because I am super curious.
Smash that like button.
Yeah, do that too.
Be part of the notification squad.
Yeah.
Buy my merch. Buy it all. I don't have any.
Like, comment, subscribe, please.
Yeah, I don't have any merch yet.
Go listen to Oliver Buckland on SoundCloud and Spotify. Rate this podcast 5 stars on Apple Podcasts,
whilst
please.
you sleep.
Please leave both this podcast and Oliver Buckland's music running while you're sleeping. Just like you can mute it. Just like leave it going so we get money.
Both of them at the same time only.
Yeah. Look, you can put Spotify on in the background.
I'm not sure where that came from. It was just like, whoa, rush of energy.
Okay, all right. Oh, here's a question. I forgot I wrote this one down. I think I wrote this one down just like when I woke up this morning. Came to me in a dream. What would you say is the core piece of any song?
What? Oh my god.
I was like, he's gonna have a fun time with this one.
Oh, bloody hell. Yeah, you're asking such difficult questions. It's like stuff that should be easy when you hear it, and then you're like, oh, but what if? I mean, there's so many different types of music, and they can have loads of different functions. If you put a gun to my head and said, come up with an answer, I'd say how it makes you feel. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean I'm right, but that's just kind of probably the most important thing for me is how something makes you feel.
I agree.
The methods of construction might be different every time, but overall, the final experience is that a listener is hearing what you've made, and they're having some sort of response to that. And that, to me, is the most important part, rather than... I think, how the piece is made is secondary.
Okay. I actually said my answer is the exact same thing. I think the emotion, the mood of a piece, what it leaves you with, that's always the most important thing. And any piece can have something to it, even if it's a simple emotion like happiness or sadness, or something much more complex like relaxation or a bittersweet feeling.
Yeah, or sort of nostalgia, all sorts of things.
Yeah, and that also influences why you listen to a piece. Like, obviously, you're not going to go on lo-fi hip-hop radio and listen to a song that makes you want to jump out of your seat and start doing push-ups on the floor, you know?
Yes, I suppose so.
Okay, I like music. I'm a big music nerd. I'm like forcing myself not to go on these weird tangents about this like
Oh, go
weird
ahead.
minor
No,
things on
do it.
music.
Do it.
I might save it for another time, honestly. Maybe I'll probably take this out. But if you're interested, I would kind of love to do an extra episode of like create stuff where I specifically bring on the people who have made music that I've had on as guests to talk about this sort of stuff with.
Yes, I think you might find it interesting to sort of see where we agree, where we disagree.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Sounds fun.
Cool. I mean, that's a separate thing. I'll contact you about that separately. And of course, I'll take that out in case it doesn't, whatever. But anyways,
Shaun's
back to you.
gonna take this out, take it out of the episode. I'm giving you more stuff to edit out, giving you more work. Ha! You can't stop me!
Oh my god, why are you like this? I swear, all my guests, let me tell you, you reminded me of Random and I right now. He literally, during the podcast, I was at my home recording it, my dog started barking, I went, oh sorry, that's just my dogs, I'll take that out. He says, no, let's listen. And he forces me to leave it in. Just us silently listening to my dogs barking in the background.
Beautiful.
Good God.
Yeah, real good content right there. This is what you came for, listeners. You listening to the unedited, straight from the source crap that spews forth from my mouth. That was a voice crack and a half. My God. Anyway,
Okay. I'm gonna have fun editing that. Okay, moving on. We're nearing the end, I think. But I do have a few other things I want to ask you about. Okay.
Yes.
Have you worked on soundtracks for anything else?
Yes. I have.
What can you tell me?
Only one of them I can talk about, because it's out already, and it was a short film done by some very talented animators in Canada from Sheridan College. They just reached out of nowhere, just saying, hey, we're working on our end of year project. It's a short animation. Would you be interested in doing the music? And this was when was this? This was in kind of late March 2021. Had to really think about that. Over the pandemic, time was meaningless. Man. Anyway, and I just kind of was like, yeah, sure, why not? Let's just do it. And that was uniquely challenging in that I was writing kind of outside of my usual style, and it felt like something that's a lot more it's like more typical composition, like film composition. I'll forward it over, and I don't know, there we are, maybe you can link that in.
Yeah, I'll put that in the description.
And so I went for this one was really difficult and really, really complicated to make, because I wanted every sound to kind of mimic what's happening on screen. They call it Mickey Mousing, because it's a cutesy animation, and that sort of style I think fits the screen. And again, I was largely led by trying to emphasize what's happening on screen, but also be funny and thematically appropriate. So this angel in this animation, she wants to help, but ends up screwing everything up. Is all I'll say. Don't want to spoil it all, but but the music is it's almost all real instruments, but sampled, which is it's quite difficult to work with sampled instruments and real instruments. No, let me rephrase that. It's harder to work with sampled instruments making it sound real, because there's so much detail to live performance that you can't get through pre-recorded samples of instruments. So this was really, really challenging, but I kind of picked it up for the challenge, and that was super fun. The second thing I'm working on is not it's not out yet, and it's still kind of in progress. But you may see it in the near future.
Ooh, okay. How exciting.
But my main composition project at the moment is Dream Barbecue. Or Dream BBQ.
Ooh.
I don't know how to... So I don't know whether... because we haven't decided if BBQ means barbecue yet.
What?
It's a bit of a... Yeah. Chaos. Yeah, and so, like, I'm writing quite a lot for that, and I'm not very far through right now. And because it's a game... I want to kind of see if I can write music that's not just play this loop in this area and play that loop when you're in that area. I kind of would like to make it more interactive. Whether or not I'll succeed, well, we shall find out. But that's
definitely a challenge.
It is, especially for somebody who's not hugely confident with, audio programming and all that. But I guess when the game is out, you'll know how successful I was with that.
Awesome. Super excited to see it. Where are you guys in development right now? Am I allowed to ask you that?
Yeah,
are you allowed to answer?
You're certainly allowed to. I mean, we're not under any NDAs. It's just we're under sort of a moral NDA, so we keep it under wraps.
Right. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Don't if you say something now and like later on you're like
It's very hard to know where we are, but good progress is being made. We're certainly not doing nothing. Loads of stuff has been done already. Some really talented people working on the team. And then here I am like, oh, I don't know how to write the music for this section. Oh, and then some person's like, oh yeah, I just did all the art for this area in a day. I'm like, oh. Nah, they're super, super nice on the team. Really, really cool people.
Awesome. All right, super excited for that. I cannot wait. I love ENA. Super good.
I hope we can deliver something good. I think it will be. It'll certainly be. Yeah, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say anything anymore.
Okay. Understandable. I'm sure it'll be interesting no matter what.
I guarantee it will be interesting. That I can guarantee.
Okay, one more small little question before I ask the final question.
Oh God.
What's it like to do music commissions? Because, like art or writing commissions, that seems pretty straightforward, but music commissions is a little bit different. What do you do how does that work?
So I haven't actually done that many. I've done, 5, 6? Mm-hmm. Oh, I can't even remember. I mean, if we count Joel's stuff as one, I think we're at 5 currently, and with a few potential others in the future. Depends from person to person, as would be the case with any sort of commission for any artist. It's important to know how quickly you write, know kind of what styles you're able to hit, and kind of how much work you can do within a certain budget. So far, everyone I've worked with has been, lovely. Really, really fine. I've been quite lucky with the commissions I've had, and I try and only pick up stuff that I think, 1, that I can do, and 2, that's interesting, because I think if it's not interesting, you're not motivated to do it.
Right.
And luckily, almost everything is like super interesting. My only problem is like if I'm not happy with like, because the latest thing I've done, I had to redo 4 times because I was like, no, this isn't right. This isn't right. And that's my problem. But at least the final result, I'm a bit more pleased with. So that's just a thing along the way. I think I'll get better at that in the future, but I want to make sure that the work that I create is above a certain level of quality, and that can be quite difficult to do consistently.
I imagine. Okay, super cool. I honestly imagine people who are commissioning you specifically probably know what their what they're looking for, the kind of sound that they're looking for.
Well,
Not necessarily?
usually for the occasions when they're not sure, I'll do a couple quick sketches and be like, do you want it more like this or more like that? And it's fine not to know, but it's worse to kind of be like, oh, I'll just do whatever and make this whole piece and then I'll decide. It's better to kind of like create some sketches because, people who like, I don't know what I want actually means I do have invisible kind of preferences, but those won't become apparent to me until you've created something. And only once you've created something will I kind of know whether something's right or wrong.
Right, when you've already put in the work.
What? Oh, my neighbour's doing? God, so it's like an elephant above me. My God. Well, you're going to hear a lot of lovely ambient sound in the background of my recording. Yeah, so, a few sketches, they'll be like, yeah, I like that one for this reason, or no, I kind of want to go for more this vibe, can you maybe put this sound in and that sound in? But that's never really been too much of a problem, and I think I'm not too worried about that in the future. I mean, I quite like that approach of just, a few crappy sketches, they pick their favourite one, then I'll expand on that sketch, and kind of along the process I'll show them, what I'm working on, and they'll be like, yep, no, okay, let's change that, good, done. It's relatively quick, but occasionally I'm like, no, I need to change it. I hope
interesting.
Very, very not concise answer helped.
No worries. I totally get it. Okay, well, I think we're about at the end point here. I have just one last question for you. This is what I ask to every guest at the end of the podcast.
Okay.
I can hear you mentally preparing yourself.
God, what's it gonna be?
So, okay. What is one piece of advice you have for the creators out there? It can be just any creator in general, or like specifically for music, or whatever you want to do. What's one piece of advice you got?
Listen to a lot. Try and have a lot of life experiences to, inform you better. You can learn a lot through play. I think that's quite an important thing for me. Mm-hmm. And also like just lean into what it is that you do best and try and make stuff that's uniquely your own. How about that? There we are. That's my advice.
Perfect. Super good advice. Could not agree more.
Hurrah.
Okay. I think we're right about at the end. Did you, just to make sure, was there anything else you wanted to talk about or anything else you want to say before we're done here?
I was going to make a really terrible joke there about NFTs. No. No. No.
Okay.
Please cut that out. Oh my God. My brain is terrible. It's like, what's the worst thing I could say here?
You could have chosen much worse.
I really could have done, my word.
Oh.
So anything else?
You're good. Somebody came into the room. We have there's like a thing that you put on the window door that's like, it says on air on it, but it's such a bother to take on and off that it's just always on, so it means nothing anymore. And also the light turns off automatically if it doesn't detect movement, so it just looks like there's no one in here because you can't see me because the on air thing is blocking it. So it's just a horrible mess. It's horrible. It's so dumb.
To flail around to sort of turn the light.
I can flail around, but it doesn't even work. I have to get up and start moving my body. It's the worst. I sit down here like 5 minutes in, the lights are already off. I've been sitting in darkness this whole time. There is light coming in from the windows, so it's not total darkness, but it's dark enough that it looks like the room is empty. So annoying. But anyways, I think we're all good and done here. Thank you so much for coming on, Oliver.
Thanks for inviting me. Thanks for having me. I'm sure I missed 1,000,001 things and, didn't use the right terms here and there, but whatever. I really did not prepare. This is just me, just rocking up.
That's okay, that's okay. I also did not give you the questions, so that really did not help, honestly.
Flying blind.
I probably should have done that.
Well, it was an honest reaction, and mostly realizing how little I actually know. Man,
That could be interesting in itself.
God, yeah, it's a common feeling. Just like, man, I know nothing. I feel like I'm just bumbling about, just kind of getting it done, and just hoping no one notices.
Well, I think there's something kind of interesting about knowing that you don't know something, because then that just means you got something new to learn in the future.
Oh, that is a good way to look at it. A very positive
Yeah.
one.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I think that's where we'll go ahead and end things. Thank you all so much for... Okay, nice and good.
What?
Thank you
I'm
all.
Sorry, oh, sorry, shit. I didn't realize what you were doing.
You're good. You're good.
I'll shut up. I'll be quiet. I'll say nothing. Hang on. If I keep talking, you can't end the podcast.
No.
You're trapped.
Oh my god. This is going to be 2 hours long. Thank you all so much for listening. Oliver, it was great to have you. Where can people find you?
You can find me you can find me on YouTube under my name, Oliver Buckland. That's Buckland. You can find me on SoundCloud on the same name, Spotify, Apple Music, I think Amazon Music, I think even like Napster even. I'm around. You'll find me on Twitter under @Bucklandibus, which is BucklandIbus. I lurk. I'm around.
Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And I will see you guys next time. Oh, everything mentioned is, of course, linked in the description. Definitely go check it out. Very good music. All right. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching the 16th episode of the Create Stuff Podcast. I'm your host, Shaun Saxum, and this is the outro. I don't know why. That's probably pretty obvious. It's not like this is about to be like the second half of the interview or something. I think it was pretty clear that it was over. I really hope you enjoyed it. This one was really fun. It was really cool getting to talk to Oliver. I really love ENA, but the music in it, like, honestly, I think the music is just amazing. I love Oliver Buckland's music. I found him from ENA and like those Internetcore playlists, but I listened to the rest of his stuff and it's so interesting to me. It was really cool to get to talk to him about it. And I'm really hoping I get to talk to him about this kind of stuff again sometime in the future, perhaps in an extra episode. We'll see about that. That'll come eventually. But yeah, thank you all for watching. It's very cool of you. If you haven't yet, leave a like, comment, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. If you're on Spotify, leave a follow. If you're on Apple Podcasts, leave a rating. And if you're somewhere else, do the thing that you do on that platform. You can figure it out. Seriously, that stuff helps so much more than you could ever know. It really helps with the algorithm and everything. Yeah. Oh, also, Patreon. You should support that. Even just $1 a month seriously helps so much. With the schedule I'm trying to do with these, like a podcast episode coming out every Wednesday, it's a little bit tough, especially with college going on. But I really want to keep it going because I want to keep providing you guys with constant content at like a fairly even pace, you know? It's something I really want to try and keep going. So if you're willing to help support me, seriously, that money helps. I really want to pay an editor to edit episodes occasionally, even if it's not always. Like, even if I don't have an editor always working on SPL Aldernomos or something, seriously, just having the option to be able to go to an editor and be like, hey, I won't be able to get the edit. I need some help. You know, I don't have enough time. Could you edit this episode? I'll pay you, obviously. Paying people is a thing you need to do in this space, believe it or not. So, yeah, that helps a lot. This is the part of the podcast where I recommend 3 things that my friends are making that I think are cool. Not even necessarily my friends, just people the things I think that are cool that aren't getting the attention they deserve, perhaps. Or perhaps they are getting the attention they deserve, but they deserve even more of it, whatever the case is. First one, Court Jester vocal cover by Moderately Mediocre. So incredibly good. Oh my god. I convinced Moderately Mediocre to do this in a voice call, I think. It might have been over text, but I convinced them to do it, and it came out so good. They did an incredible vocal cover of a what do you call it? A Vocaloid song, and like the non-Vocaloid voice, and it sounds so good, honestly. Like it's by far my favorite version of the song. They did an incredible cover. The link is in the description. Even if you haven't heard the original song, seriously go check it out. It's so good. Also, Moderately Mediocre isn't that far from 10k subscribers, so go subscribe to them. So you can see their very awesome music. I know they have some really cool stuff in the works. I'm very excited to see it. Second thing, you may have just recently noticed that I had Dr. Gears on this podcast, right? Well, Dr. Gears also made an appearance on Discovering SCP. I mentioned them in the past, but seriously, go check out that episode if you liked my interview with Dr. Gears. It's honestly my favorite episode of Discovering SCP, I think. It was really fun, and they called me a dweeb in it, so I'll never forgive them for that, but it was a really fun podcast. I definitely go check that out. Link is in the description. I know I recommend Discovering SCP a lot, but yeah, I wanted to mention them this time because one of my guests is there doing the thing. You know, go watch it. Also watch the 15th episode of Create Stuff where I interviewed Dr. Gears. Oh, and here's two things for the third point. The SCP space has some really cool authors in it. Actually, no, here's three really cool artists in the SCP space. Corgo, Wendigo, and Zalcryptid on Twitter are all really cool artists. They do mostly SCP stuff, but not all SCP stuff. I really enjoy their art, though. It's just incredibly good. Link is in the description to all three of those. Go check them out. Give them some support. That'll be about it, except I will quickly mention the people who have subscribed to me on Patreon and thank them for their patronage. I was at patronage. Thank you so much to Sammy Sue, of course, as always. Seriously, thank you so much, Sam. They're so incredibly supportive at all times. And also Jack Mockery, who just joined. Thank you so much, Jack. I appreciate that a ton. He will be showing up in an episode of SCP Authors Anonymous very, very soon. Can't wait. Alright, thank you guys all so much for watching. I'll see you guys next week for an episode of SCP Authors Anonymous featuring Dr. Gears and Dr. Clef on the same podcast in the same space. I'm still reeling for the fact that I actually managed to get them together for that, but that's a thing. That's gonna happen. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Oh, I should also mention, there is a chance, I'm not 100% sure about this, I'm going to try and get an episode ready for it, but there is a chance there will be no episode this upcoming Wednesday, not this upcoming Wednesday, the Wednesday after this upcoming Wednesday on the 23rd, because that will be during my spring break, and I'm not bringing my computer home, which is what I use to edit these. I'm going to try and prepare one in advance, but I'm really not sure if I'll have time for it, and I'm also not super interested in overstressing myself during exam week, despite the fact that my exams aren't that bad. I could probably do it, but, you know, I'm not gonna hurt myself over it if I can't. So there's your warning. Might not be one the Wednesday after next Wednesday, but hopefully there will be. Okay, bye bye everybody.